What's going on YouTube? This is Deke back with another Sorare video. Today we are back into the Wonderkid series and we're going with Cam. I have 29 players here and a lot of these guys are your top guys as far as the under 23s. Just a reminder with this video, they're all under 21. That is my kind of Wonderkid cutoff. Some of these guys don't play at all right now, but they're for the future. Some of these guys are really established already. So let's jump into the list. And at number 1, and it's going by most expensive to least expensive, Musiala for Bayern. Clearly, he is an absolute stud. We take a look at his prices. Very expensive for the limited, very expensive for the rare. Look at his scores. He is phenomenal. Bayern's going to score goals. He's going to have a lot of decisives as far as we go. He's only going to build off this. This stretch is kind of what you're looking at with him. He is a spryly only 19 years old, so he has under 23 eligibility through 2027. So if you are in the market for someone for, a long time, he's got to be up there. As far as your under 23 players, he is going to be one of the best players in the prize pool from here on out, especially with Mbappe leaving the prize pool. And you got some other good guys that are leaving the prize pool, but he is going to be the guy. Number 2, Florian Wirtz for Leverkusen. He is just back off of injury. You can see his prices are very high, even from the kind of price. If we take a look at the injury, and let's just look at the rares to start, but you can see how up, down, up. But his hype went right back up. And even with being out for pretty much an entire year, he is down as far as, the limited, but a lot of limiteds and a lot of cards in general are just down if you take a look at so rare prices. So if we take a look at his coming back, he has 1 decisive in 4. He is a sub for 2 of the games, and he hasn't really hit his stride. He is hitting some AA games, but I would like to look at his all-time graph to see what he's going to bring to the table. That's what he's going to bring to the table once he gets back into form and gets back into first team, regularly just starting pretty much every game. So you'll see these high scores. I expect that to come in the near future. So take a look at his upcoming schedule. He might have some upside games maybe here, and it's still a little bit tricky, but I think he will improve, and it is kind of fun being able to use him in the free-to-play draft modes because I can't realistically have him in my gallery. Pedri is the next one. So we're starting with 3 high talent guys. If you take a look at his scores, he is in phenomenal form, and he is doing a lot for Barcelona. He is on free kicks lately, and if you take a look at his AAA scores, they are unbelievable. So if he can bag a goal or an assist, that just makes him all the better. You're not really relying on that. As far as his decisives, that's not really where his score is coming from. His AA game of 20.7 over the last year per game with a 60 average is unbelievable. And you see all those green scores. Nothing really more to say about him. He's only 20, and he is one for the future and the present. Next guy on the list, I had him on the list already. He's finally breaking out, is Cherki from Lyon. He is starting to really get into it, and look at his AA games. Unbelievable. He has just exploded onto the scene. He had this nice goal in 77, and then all these run-ups. He had some beautiful AA games, and last game out, unbelievable. The crazy part about all this is he's putting up these great scores, and if you go into the stats, he has like 10 plus attempted assists multiple times, which is absolutely insane. Some of his teammates could start scoring the goal, the ball in the net whenever he assists. He could have 3-4 assists a game in some of these. So he's 19 years old. His price is on the rise. If you just kind of take a look at his graph, let's go to limited market and let's go all. It is starting to climb back up. But if you look, it's not that crazy because that's where he was before, dropped off because some of that hype kind of went down. He was selling, I don't know what happened there, but very cheaply, and he is on a steep increase. And I expect more from him. He is going to be one for the future and a great guy to have in your lineups. Next up is a guy that's super frustrating, is Guler from Fenerbahce. So interest from PSG was rejected in the transfer window. Man City was also interested. It's just so frustrating. He has such great AA and such little time. So if you see here, he started here, but then he's relegated back to the bench. Just not playing. If you have the funds to hold on to him, this is probably like I don't know, like a 2-year hold for him, which is super frustrating for a guy this expensive. So if you're paying that much for a guy that, I mean, he has such upside, and if he could just get a run of form just in the lineup, I don't understand why he doesn't play. He's phenomenal. I know he's young, but if you take a look last year as a sub, he was a machine in just no time. 27 AA, just given 45 minutes last year. And he just isn't getting the exposure and isn't getting the time. I mean, these are pretty much all his subs, which is insane. So, one to watch for the future. He's super frustrating. I just can't, I would love to own him for the upside, but you just can't get involved in that. Next one I do own is Arsene Zakarian. And most likely he's probably going to go to Chelsea this summer, which I think does hurt his value a decent amount. I own him, and I am holding on to him for the time being. With all the cards being kind of down, I paid 0.6. He's going for 0.42. So obviously cheaper. ETH has risen as well. So I really like him. He takes free kicks. He has that upside. He has unbelievable upside. If we take a look before break, Russian League has been gone forever, what it seems like, and it's finally going to be back here in like a month, I think. But when it is back, I expect some great things. You just take a look at these AA games. He's involved in a ton, especially down the stretch here, in what were some good matchups and some decent matchups. But his AA game is unbelievable. The red card here, and he had to sit out, and then he kind of got into some okay form, but he's still putting up 22 AA in a game, almost putting up 60 points just on AA. Then he has those assists, he has those goals, and he's just an awesome player. Now he is going to leave, and will he be a starter at Chelsea? I don't know. If Chelsea does end up buying him. He's only 19 years old, turning 20 in May, and he has so much upside. It's just his Sorare ability is going to be limited if he moves to Chelsea. Next up is Lazar Samardzic, and he is at Udinese, and there will be 2 players on this list on Udinese. So his price is 0.02 for a limited and 0.28 for a rare. You see he does have some upside scores, which is really nice to see, and he has made his way into the starting lineup for the last 3 matches. He did score against Hellas Verona, and he put up a nice 88.2 in a 28 AA game. Before that, he was pretty much playing every game. As you can see here, one bench spot here, one bench spot here. So even if he doesn't start, he's getting a decent amount of minutes, a good chunk of minutes lately. You see 20 minutes and 11 minutes are kind of his low. That hurts, but he is kind of coming into his own. And if you take a look at his age, he's 20 years old. He is turning 21 at the end of this month, but he has that eligibility, and he is starting to break into the team. So one that I would definitely watch, and if he can get like start every time, this 3 stretch is kind of what turned me on to him a little bit, because he's never had 3 in a row before. So one to watch for sure for Udinese. Next one, Garby for PSG. So he was supposed to move to Nice on loan, and the Ziyech move fell through, and there's a bunch of things, and right now he's still at PSG. His cards were just getting minted, it seemed, this year, so his first cards, 18 years old, and the reason that he is kind of, his price is that high, and I do think he is a talent, he's come on as a sub a couple times, 1 minute, 12 minutes, and 1 minute, and then he's been on the bench. So he's at least on the bench for PSG, which is pretty unbelievable at, 18 years old in that big of a club. So the upside, I do think he is a talented kid. And I did watch, whenever I had a Y Scout free trial, I did watch some clips of him, training with the under-19s, things like that. And he seems like he's very talented, and he's great on the ball. So one to definitely watch, and it'd be nice if he got his picture here, because I hate when there's no picture with it. Next one, we're going to Salzburg. So Salzburg has a great academy, and we're going with Moritz Kiergaard. And he is a half-decent card already, and I don't see any transfer rumors for him moving. So another league that just absolutely took forever to get back is the Austrian Bundesliga. It is coming back finally, and I feel like people forgot about the league. I kind of forgot about the league, other than like I have Sesko and a couple other players in the league. Nicholas Hadel in net as well. So you take a look, they're going to have great matchups all the time, and he has kind of blossomed into that left mid role for Salzburg. He is a starter, and he plays every game. So that is great to see. He is always going to be on. It's just, will he start? Which he's kind of turned that around. And, he had the sub here, but that was in between a Champions League fixture. So he's going to start. He's going to play some nice AA games. 34.9, 23, 22, 30. But it's going to be a lot of matchup based, and they're going to have a lot of good matchups. And playing that left mid, you would like to see more decisives because he is going to cross in a lot of balls. And it just depends what you prefer in a player. I do think at his price, $50 for a limited and $450 is fair for what the price and player is. He's only 19 years old, which is great to see. I would love to see another year after this at Salzburg, and I really think he can blossom into an even better player and an even better prospect. Next one, we're going to Indonesia again, Simone Pavundi, and he is the more of a project in comparison to Lazar. So he has only had 2 sub appearances, and he has been on the bench a few times, and as of late, he's been on the bench pretty much every time. So he's breaking into, but here's why. As you can see, the age, he's 16 years old. He's turning 17 March 13th, and he has under 23 eligibility till 2030. Unbelievable. So he is kind of making his way in. If he gets a start, I think that price will bump up even more, which is tough to say. His cards are just coming out, just being minted. I wouldn't buy right now. There is a lot of hype behind it, and especially he's not really playable yet, but an interesting prospect to say the least. 16-year-old is always interesting in the Sorare game. Next guy is probably my favorite guy on the list, and I don't own him yet, but I'm trying to put some funds together to make some buys to kind of shore up some positions, and midfield is one of them. So we have Yari Verscharen, and he's unbelievable. As far as recent form, he just put up 100. I really like him. I think he has so much upside. Anderlecht has been, not good whatsoever. You had this horrendous run of form, which is crazy, and they're making some changes, but I really think I had him on the list before this 100, but you could see the AA. That's kind of why. He's always been on my radar, but he has that AA, and then if he can put in a goal, an assist, he's going to put up some monster scores. So he has that upside, tournament winning upside that I really need to have in my club for sure. So he's going to be, I need a goalie because Hassal's gone to the bench. I need an under 23 goalie, which is going to set me back pretty bad, but he is going to be one of the second or third buys as far as my upgrades to my club. Alex Baena. So there were links to Arsenal after the Mudryk fail signing when he went to Chelsea, but there's nothing in the last couple weeks and whenever the deadline kind of wrapped up. You take a look at him, he is playing. He had a bingo score line here, an error, a yellow card, and an assist. So that's a kind of a crazy score line. I did not think Villarreal was going to lose to Elche. And that's 2 fixtures back-to-back that are a little bit surprising. So how did this work? I looked into the situation. He was at Villarreal 2, and then he got the call up to the team. He started against Real in the win, and he went down here. He didn't play. I don't know why he's listed at both, because he's more of a senior squad member. As you can see here, he is in the starting lineup. It's just a little bit confusing with the page of having that second club in, because the second league in La Liga is there. So he's very interesting. As long as he stays there, I think he has upside at times. But his price here, $34 and $256. It's still a little high for my liking for what he is right now, 44.8 average. But he does have these upside games which are very interesting. Some of them have been Champions League / Europa League, not Champions League, Europa League. But some have been in league as well. He hasn't hit that recently, but a very interesting player that has that upside. Next up, we're going to Porto and Vasco Sousa. He is 19 years old, $19 on the limited, $287 on the rare. So we take a look at his recent. He was subbed on for 2 minutes, and that's all we're looking at. So he was completely out of the squad. The 2 minutes here, you know, he's an upside guy. If you take a look at kind of some lists that have some scouts and their kind of predictions of who are guys that can make the next step, he was one of them. And again, whenever I had my Y Scout membership, the free trial, I looked him up as one of the players. He looks pretty solid. I think if he can break into the Porto squad, anyone from Porto really has upside just with the league and how good Porto is. So he is one to watch in the future. He is not SO5 ready, but one for down the line. I would not pay these prices though, but I do want to include him in my video. Pablo Torres next. He asked to play for Barcelona's reserve team, so that's not great as far as like his development, and he's a little expensive. We take a look here. He has had one start there. That was in Champions League and a couple subs, but other than that, he just really hasn't played whatsoever, but he is very talented, 19 years old, turning 20 in April, and one to watch for the future like a lot of these guys. Fabio Carvalho for Liverpool, who's been an absolute dumpster fire, but he has some upside if you can kind of look through what this season has been. So he has been on the bench. He's been out of the team. He's been a sub. He started a couple games. It's mainly been like left mid. He hasn't played that cam role, which I think he's better at. If you take a look at the scores for Fulham, he had that upside, but again, that was in the championship. Obviously not the same thing playing for Liverpool and, you know, coming off the bench and things like that. But I think he does have the upside in the future. Boy, it's just tough to take as a watcher of Liverpool. And when do they right the ship? Is it at home against Everton? I don't know. Everton just looked good against Arsenal, so at Newcastle, probably not. I mean, when does it end? It's just been a terrible year, but I want to watch for him as well. Liverpool has some great young players, and they should add to that with maybe Jude Bellingham or some other players. But I mean, at this point, why does Jude even come? I don't know. Next one, we're going back to Salzburg. Dijon Kamari. He is in and out of the team a little bit. Out of the squad here. He started out of the squad. That was an injury. He starts a decent amount of cam. Lukas Sucic, if he plays the cam role, Bernardo can play cam a little bit. He plays more striker, but he's 18 years old and he's getting time. So you like to see that. The prices of these players, they're worth a shot, in my opinion, because, you know, they might be a year away and then they have this unbelievable matchup every week for playing for Salzburg. So one to watch. He is not playable right now, but I do think he has upside in the future. This one's interesting. So Sert Demir, he plays for Leverkusen, but he just moved to Nordjylland and on loan. So I'm not sure why it doesn't show him having a club. He does play for Nordjylland. And if we take a look here, he has nothing on here. So this is my kind of like ace in the hole guy that I don't think anyone really, I'd say he's under the radar. That's kind of all I'll leave it at. He is a little bit more expensive as far as price, but I think if he can get some form on loan, you know, Leverkusen has played their young guys right away with a lot of them. So young squad, if he can kind of earn a starting position maybe in like 2 years. But again, some of these guys are young. It's going to be a couple years till they make it in. Florian De Silva, he's playing for Volendam, who has been horrendous in the Netherlands. He's loaned from Lyon. He's solid. I mean, that's all I can really say. He was loaned out in the January window. he is getting some burn, and he has a goal and an assist, and he's starting every game, pretty much playing 90. He didn't play 90 last time out. But, maybe he runs into some form. The team has kind of rounded into some form with him. Groningen win in the 75. So he's interesting to see what he can do on loan, 19 years old, another young guy with some talent. Which brings me to the next point and my next player, which this is kind of, I don't know, it kind of feels dirty. Rainier at Girona. So he was a $30 million signing for Real Madrid. He has never played for Real Madrid, hasn't made a first-team appearance. Now he's on loan at Girona, which Girona has all these young players with so much upside, and I don't know if that's injury, to be honest with you. I haven't really followed his situation. He's only 21. He just turned 21, but I feel like he's been around, and he just kind of has stalemated and has gone a little bit stagnant. So we take a look here. He did score back here, but these scores are just from subs, and he was at Dortmund before. Just nothing to like here. I did want to include him because I do think he has talent. It's just, when's it going to happen? Maybe it's he gets another loan next year. So I think for $12, maybe that's not the worst play, but I can't really recommend buying him at this point. But if he can turn it on, he has the upside to be a really good player. And Real Madrid thought so, and they have a pretty good signing record, but they might have just fizzled on this one. Next one. We have Antony Givu Malambo for Feyenoord, and he is 17 years old, and he has no experience as far as for Sorare. So another guy that he is relatively cheap, but is he cheap for a guy that doesn't play at all? Kind of not really. But one to watch for the future. A lot of these guys at the late list, their price are at the bottom of the barrel, and the scores are going to be the same way. So another guy that I like his upside, just not right now. If he gets into the team, his price is going to skyrocket, though. So definitely one to watch. Next guy, Pierre Duomo. He is on loan from Antwerp, Royal Antwerp, and he's at Oostende. He was at Braga, and he was recalled at the January window. You see, like, nothing happened whenever he was at Braga. He just wasn't part of the team. Before he left, he had a couple starts. They put him in the shop window kind of thing. And then now playing for Oostende, he is coming off the bench. He has talent. He is 18 years old, so there's a lot of time, 2028. And I think if he can, maybe round into some form for a pretty poor team in the Belgian league, that maybe he'll get a shot back with his home club next year. Next guy on loan from Brighton at Vitesse is Kacper Kozlowski. He is a very talented player, and Brighton, he might have a spot at Brighton, which that hurts his value. Obviously, he has more value at Vitesse right now, but the summer window, Brighton could see a lot of players, Caicedo, Ogon, and others. So they've already lost a few players as well. So I do think he might stick around next year and get some time. And if you just take a look at his loan, he has pretty much been a starter a ton. He's playing a defensive role, not as attacking, but he has played attacking mid a decent amount. But look at his last two assists in both, really nice scores. He has some AA, but he has some kind of bad AA games as well. But playing for like a mid-table-ish team, those aren't bad scores whatsoever, and he does have some nice upside in good matchups. So I'm definitely looking at game week 345. This could be a good matchup for him. Down to the last few here. Mabuku for Augsburg. Nothing really to say about him. He is 20 years old. He has a lot of talent, but he just hasn't done much for SO5. Next one, we have a Turkish player. I feel terrible about the devastation in Turkey. Emirhan İlkan for Sampdoria. Nothing really to see here. If we go back to whenever he did play, that was at Besiktas. And solid AA games, honestly. Especially like this was 45 minutes, 13.7, very solid. Since moving over to Torino, not as much play time, and he was loaned out to Sampdoria. And as you can see here, he just played a little bit at Torino, but the loan move just happened. He was on the bench, so look for him. Maybe he'll start starting. That would be nice as an 18-year-old to see. Next up, Gaziantep in Turkey, Babusku. And again, like all these guys, there's just not a lot for SO5 purposes yet, but it only takes an injury, something like that. They came over from Admira, and it really only has 2 appearances, 20 minutes here, 1 minute here. One for the future. He's 19 years old, and I do think if he can break into the starting squad, he is a guy that at $4, why not, right? For his rare, you can't pay that because there's so many other options out there, but super rare is pretty cheap. He's a guy that has upside for sure, and he's under 23 until 2028. All right, last 4. Aymar for Osasuna, so he is coming off a contusion. What does he say? Out until 2/14, so he's coming back here. Nothing too worrisome about that. He does get some decent time, and unlike a lot of the others here, he plays a decent amount. You take a look here. He has a goal and assist over his last like 10-ish plus games, and he has put up some really nice scores, but he is pretty dependent on having a goal or an assist. Except it seems like whenever he does put up a decisive action, 22.9, 14.2, he does have a nice game. So maybe matchup based, but 21-year-old who for Osasuna has some upside and has some low L15. So if he can kind of get a spot on starting role, not the worst $9 you've ever spent. Marco Berklejaka, probably botched that. So he plays for U19 Zagreb squad. Zagreb is a great team in Croatia, obviously, and for $6, he could be a guy that maybe next year, maybe the year after, gets into that starting lineup. He has nothing, but he has come on to the bench a couple times here, which, if you go all the way back, did not have that. He is playing for the under 19 squad, so if he does get an appearance, I think that price will rise a little bit, so he's definitely interesting. Next guy for Lorient, he played for Saint Etienne last year, transferred over as they got relegated. Adil Ayoichi, I always botch that name. He's a good player in Football Manager, but not a SO5 player. It's just he's a sub. He doesn't start. It's almost him starting for Saint Etienne in the second league. Serie B might have been better for his, definitely would have been better for his Sorare ability. But at Lorient, they've been great this year. He just can't really find his way into the starting lineup because, he's behind some people. He's only 20, so still time there. And brings us back to our last one, and it's Barak Ince, another second league guy. So he plays for Bielefeld, and they did go down last year. He played a little bit last year as like a sub, but he just, I know he had an injury, but then I'm not really sure what's going on with his development this year. He hasn't had a single appearance, and kind of frustrating. I did think that I, at one point, owned his limited card, only $4 for a limited, and his rare, if it goes for 0.02, he has a lot of upside. It's just, he hasn't been able to break into the team, and he hasn't been able to really do anything. So they don't really look like they're going to come straight back up as far as I know. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with him if he starts getting some action. He is under contract till 2025. Okay, so there's our next list. We're down to our last 3 episodes, I believe, of this series. Hopefully you guys like this, and please like, comment, and all that good stuff to, help me out. Thanks, and see you next time.